So let's get into the questions that folks had on the reparations for Black Americans. It's really important when we're talking about these state and local plans that they do not attempt to go beyond what their scope is. When we're talking about something like chattel slavery, where the entire country was culpable, the United States government is the institution that allowed that practice to take place, particularly insofar as they absorbed the Confederacy at the end of the Civil War. And so they kind of took on those moral burdens. And so they are the culpable party. But beyond that, the scale at which addressing the harms and the cost imposed on the Black community by chattel slavery is really something that only the federal government has the capacity to be able to do as well. The amount that it would take to compensate for that harm is something that no state and no city has the capacity to be able to do, largely because, again, cities and states are bound to having a balanced budget, whereas the federal government can pay far more than those smaller governments are capable of doing. In addition to not really being the culpable party, they simply do not have the power of the purse that's necessary to be able to meet that cost. Now, when we're talking about state and local reparations plans, there are still harms that are committed and perpetuated by those state and local governments that is up to the people of that state to dig into and recognize and find what the cost of that harm was, find the specific communities that were harmed in that way, make the apologies, acknowledge that harm, and provide the material compensation for what that harm was, whether that's denying folks access to mortgages, whether that's employment discrimination, mass incarceration. There are things that have been perpetuated by state and local governments. People have come together and pushed those governments to provide compensation in those ways. And there have been some really effective plans that have come out of that movement as well. I don't see the two sets of plans as being in conflict. I don't see state and local plans for redress and reparations taking away from the possibility of there being reparations at the federal level when there's political will to do that. In fact, I look at it as there being a sort of order of operations. Policies may start at the state and local level as these sort of laboratories for democracy. And as folks see more clearly that, this is something that's possible, we can actually do this, you start to build that political will that you need to get people to push their representatives to support those initiatives being put in place and those task forces being put together so that we are actually studying reparations at the federal level for chattel slavery, for mass incarceration, for the failures of Reconstruction. And so again, I think the state and local plans happening is a good thing. It's great proof of concept. I believe it's also building towards the possibility of having a federal plan in the future.